Take two. Well, howdy. This uber professional video is meant to be a conversation starter with you about transition. I hope that for some of you, I might change how you think about transition and why you should start today to work towards it. I reckon I better introduce myself and let you know who's talking at you. My name is Amy Wilson, but my friends call me Big Mama. And I'm just like most of you. I'm a parent. I know it's probably just a formality because it's clear from my attire and the fact that in lieu of a PowerPoint, I chose to color these slides. But I'm what you call a professional parent. If you haven't ever heard of that term, that's okay, because I just made it up. But I will tell you what I think one is, and you can decide if you are one too. A professional parent is a parent that has to perform at a professional level and often must deal with professionals, be it doctors, teachers, therapists, social workers, speech pathologists, equipment providers, and insurance companies to coordinate care and meet the needs of their child. They have to be well informed about their child's diagnosis, available treatments and therapies, community resources, laws pertaining to equal access to community services, and so forth. This type of parent is an asset to the team that's providing services for the child because they know the child like nobody else and can provide valuable information and input that will lead to the best outcomes for their child. They are always advocates and tend to approach problems with the future in mind. Does that describe you? If it doesn't, I'm going to talk about some things that I have learned along the way that will help to ensure that you and your child are ready for the future. It seems like it was just yesterday that I was bringing Hunter home from the hospital, but it wasn't. I was 19 and didn't have a clue what my future was going to be nothing at all like I had imagined it. I suspect I had an experience like some of you maybe. I went to the hospital expecting to take home a healthy baby in a day or two, and that did not happen. At birth, we were surprised to learn that Hunter had multiple birth defects. He was born with a congenital diaphragmatic hernia, a cleft lip and palate, and scoliosis. When we did finally walk out of that hospital 11 months later, we did it with a ventilator-dependent, G-tube fed baby and a huge learning curve as parents. Due to medication that he needed to save his life, we found out less than 6 months later that he was also going to be profoundly deaf, and our learning curve grew again. Although that seems like yesterday, that was 16 years ago. He has grown, and so have we as his parents and family. When I describe Hunter to people that have never met him, they're often shocked by his abilities and his independence when they do meet. They don't match his diagnosis, they think. He's not supposed to be able to do the things that he does. They imagine a far less capable boy, and it messes with their psyche that he isn't as helpless as they expected. There's a reason why he is so able. We began focusing on Hunter's transition at diagnosis. I was lucky enough to be raised in a home by parents that taught me to be independent. I also had exposure as a child to children with special needs. My mom had a daycare and was also a para in a self-contained classroom for a time. Many of her former students were frequent guests in our home for 4-H parties. I learned that people were people, no matter what their abilities were. They all had value and should be accepted just as they were. I never would have thought that I would become the parent of a special needs child, But that early exposure helped me be okay with my son's disabilities a lot quicker than I would have had I never had any contact with a person with a disability. It also helped me make some good decisions early on that have benefited my son. I saw some of my mom's students with similar disabilities to Hunter's as adults with aging parents. And it made me think about the future a lot sooner than most parents probably do. I saw parents struggling to provide care once a spouse died, or when their child got too big to lift or too aggressive to manage at home, and parents who had had their kids at home and people who had known nothing but their mom and dad were being put in institutions. I have had more than a few good cries over the fact that one day I will no longer be in this world, but my son still will. And I wonder, what would his fate be? Will a stranger be kind? Will his siblings check on him? What if someone doesn't understand sign language? What if he's approached by an officer and doesn't obey his commands because he doesn't understand? I wondered why parents of special needs kids couldn't just be immortal. I have a cape, but it just makes me look cool. It offers me no special powers, least of all immortality. If I wasn't going to be around to take care of my son, I couldn't trust that a friendly stranger would. I figured I'd better get busy teaching my son how to take care of himself, and that's just what I did. I learned all I could, and in the process taught him all I knew. Hunter could suction his own trach at 2 years old and feed himself through his G-tube by the time he was 3. If a typical child his age could do it, that was what I used for my gauge. A typical child can feed themselves at 3. Just because he ate differently, I didn't see any reason why Hunter couldn't feed himself too. I know some kids physically cannot do for themselves or cognitively can't, but there are some things that maybe they are capable of, and those things should be encouraged. Transition services are to prepare you for life after high school and are typically started at 14, but must be started by 16 years of age. But if you wait until then to start thinking about it, you've wasted a lot of time that could have been better spent if you'd been more purposed. Transition isn't like puberty. There isn't a germination period, and when you've incubated for 18 years, you wake up one morning and are a responsible adult. Nope. What would happen if you had a child that you did everything for, that didn't have any chores or have to help around the house, and was given a car with unlimited gas and all the spending money they needed, and when that child turned 18, the parents said, "You're an adult, go get a job, be independent"? You'd have a 35-year-old living in your basement playing video games, eating cereal in their underwear all day long. You teach responsibility. It doesn't come in with your pubes. You start when the child is 3, making them pick up their blocks when they finish playing with them. That's the same mindset you need to have with transition. When you do, you don't waste valuable time. Parents aren't the only ones who waste time because they aren't focused on transition. Teachers are guilty too. I told you it seemed like it was just yesterday that I was rocking a baby to sleep. Time has a way of slipping past us if we aren't purposed in what we're doing. We miss important windows and opportunities for learning. One of the ways that I see time is wasted and transition is pushed to the wayside is parents and teachers are so focused on the here and now that they can't see 50 years down the road. They're trying to get through the next 50 minutes and are just trying to survive and can't see that what they're doing to have an easy 50 minutes or trying to make it out of the store without a tantrum is going to make the next 50 years difficult for that child. You struggle now and grow now so your child doesn't have to struggle later. Oftentimes, inappropriate behavior is overlooked because a child is cute or because they're little. But think about if your child did some of the things they do now as an adult. They would be arrested. It becomes criminal then. Something as simple as wanting to hug everyone they meet. When they're 40 and are hugging and kissing all the little kids on the playground, suddenly something that has been okay and fine their whole life is not okay anymore. When you're purposed in your parenting and transition to independence is a priority, you don't waste time backtracking, because you never teach something that somebody else is later going to have to unteach. It's also important and relevant to transition to only ask for services for your child that minimizes their disability instead of highlighting it. Probably one of the biggest reasons parents fail to address transition is because they are emotionally not ready to deal with the fact that one day things will change. But not wanting something to change rarely, if ever, actually stops it from happening. It's coming, if you like it or not. Your child is legally an adult and by law is the boss of themselves. The access that you have had to their medical records, what their insurance will cover, who can sign for surgery, where they're able to go to the doctor, and lots of other decisions are out of your hands unless you've been purposed and prepared for what was coming next. Colleges don't have IEPs. They do make some accommodations, but you don't get an IEP with your FAFSA. You need to know that. If your child is going to seek employment, they need to have job skills. When your transition plan is developed for your child, you need to look at it. Find out what resources are available in your community that interest your child for work. And if your child is neither college-bound or headed for employment, don't think that you don't need to be concerned with transition, because you do. Have you thought about guardianship? If your child isn't on waiver, maybe they need to be. You need to get your own estates in order in case something were to happen to you. Your will should be prepared. You need to train other family members to provide care for your child. You might have the most preparing of all, so you need to start as soon as you can. I want to give you a few practical examples on how I am being purposed in preparing Hunter for a successful transition. Hunter's hopes for after high school are to be independent and to be employed. I want him to be able to stay in our own community after high school instead of moving away to work in a program for disabled adults. If you can't tell by now, I'm not a big fan of special places for special people. I'm more of the all people everywhere school of thought. I needed some shirts made for an event my kids were performing at. They were signing a song at a Disability Awareness Day, and I thought it would be pretty fun if we all had matching shirts. Those shirts, they say, don't diss my abilities, too, by the way. I went to my local screen printing shop, Green-Eyed Frog, and I ordered shirts for our event and struck up a conversation with the owner. Anytime I needed anything printed, I just went to the Green-Eyed Frog, and Teresa, the owner, and I were fast becoming friends. On one visit, she mentioned that the kids she hired, typical high school kids, would never do one particular job that she needed. I suggested that maybe Hunter could do it, or kids that were autistic, because they very much like detail-oriented work and would probably do a better job than her current high school kids. That conversation led to Hunter spending the day in the print shop learning all about screen printing, and that was a job that he might consider. It also allowed a local business owner to consider a whole new pool of potential employees that before she would have overlooked or never given a chance, because I was purposed in my encounter with her. A local card detailing shop is now offering Hunter job experience, and for other special education students to get job skills in our community as well, from another purposed encounter. But the best part is Hunter is excited about the potential to work and provide for his own needs. Will he be totally independent? Maybe not. But he still should be able to reach his potential, whatever that may be. No matter how old your child is, you can start planning for the future. If your child is an adult, plan anyway. Things are still guaranteed to change. It starts with you. It shouldn't be this way, but the truth is that kids that receive the best services have parents that know how to be effective advocates. No matter how wonderful an advocate you are for your child, your job is not done until you teach self-advocacy. And when you do that, self-advocacy will lead your child to be independent. Independence is necessary for successful transition into adulthood. It all comes full circle. It is very difficult to teach something that you have never learned. Your child will not be a self-advocate if you don't first advocate for them. Even if you're dealing with a whole team of people working with your child, no one will do more for your child than you're willing to do for them. Even if it is their job. You set the tone. You drive the momentum. And when you do, and people see how hard you work to meet the needs of your child and teach them to meet their own needs, they will go out of their way to help you, even if it's not their job. In closing, educate yourself about what kind of transition services your child is going to need. Face your fears. Have a good long cry if you need to. Eat a gallon of ice cream. Grieve the future you imagine for your child if you need to, so you and your child can have the best future possible. I hope this video will be a conversation starter and get you thinking where you are and when it comes to transition and developing a workable plan to get you where you need to be. I sure hope you learned something. And if any of you decide you might just be a professional parent, just know that you cannot call yourself that unless you own the uniform. Go out and get yourself a box of crayons and some spiffy duds, and then we'll talk. Thanks for watching, and if I can be of any further assistance, or if you would like to know more information about transition services in Arkansas, go to arkansastransitions.com, or you can contact me at ventmom@gmail.com, and I will help you in any way that I can. Y'all be good to each other now, you hear?